Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome home to Authentic Achievements. And can I start by saying Happy New Year? I can't believe that another year is here. But whenever we get to this point, I think it gives us an opportunity to really reflect. And as we talked about in the last show, reflecting on the year that's gone and what we're grateful for, what we've learned, what we'd like to do differently, and then starting the year off with intention. And that's kind of what we're going to chat about today. We are yet again winging it slightly, as our guest unfortunately was unable to join us. But hopefully you'll stay with me and we can talk about some of the things that we've learned in the last few years about intention over intensity and how to lead, live and grow on purpose. I don't know if this resonates with anybody, but I remember always trying harder, thinking I'd got to work faster, do more, be busy, and didn't get anywhere. You know, I was very busy. I was filling all my time. I was overachieving in some elements, but I wasn't really getting where I wanted to go. And I felt stuck and behind a lot of the time. And it's really hard when you're in that place to work out what to do next. What I did, which is what a lot of people do, is I just did more. But more of the same isn't going to get a different result. And it wasn't until I did something that felt really counterintuitive that things really started to shift for me. I slowed down. I paused. I took a real stock of what was going on for me, what was bringing me joy, what was taking away my joy. Where were the areas that actually, they didn't feel like work because they aligned with what I wanted to do. They aligned with my purpose. And once I'd done that, once I actually took that step back and really paused and gave some thought, and it felt really uncomfortable to start off with. I felt like, how on earth is this ever going to help? You know, I should be busy doing instead of busy thinking. But if we don't think about what it is that we want to do, if we've not got real clarity over what it is we're looking to achieve, then we're always going to feel stuck because our body doesn't know where it's going. And so it's grappling for what it thinks is the next step. And over the years, you know, I had a number of guests who've taught me some amazing things. And one of them that really hit me last year and really made sense, despite the fact I'd probably been told this numerous times before, was they invited me to reflect. To reflect and really give pause, sit with things to say, you know, what are all of the things in my life, not just in work, that make me happy, that bring me joy, that make me feel that things are going well. I've got things to be grateful for. And then what are the areas that pull me down, that zap my energy? And why are those? And what do they have to do with my everyday life? Are they things that I'm carrying that are no longer for me? So they might have been things that I needed to have before, but they may no longer be part of my future. And it was a really interesting exercise. So sitting with those questions about what is it I really want to achieve, not what is it I think other people expect me to achieve. That for me was a really hard one. I was measuring my success on what I perceived other people measured success on. Did I earn as much as I used to? No. Did I have the same material things as I'd had before? No. But do I have things that are utterly priceless to me? Yeah. I now have built a life where I'm able to balance running a business, being a TV show host, and being a mum. I get to do the school drop-offs and the school pickups, and I get to have priceless time with my little girl that is worth so much more than the things that I used to think were successful. Now, that might not feel like success to somebody else, and that's fine, because that's their version of success. But one of my greatest learnings was to get comfortable with knowing what my version of success was, because that's the only way you're actually going to really ever feel fulfilled. And, I deal with clients all of the time who are busy, who are outwardly successful, who have got everything that you would expect to have if you were successful. And yet they don't feel fulfilled. They don't feel inwardly successful. And that's because they haven't yet found out what it is they really want to do. So I invite all of you to take a moment as we start this new year, because it's already started, to pause, to take some time and just sit with yourself and reflect honestly on all the things that you enjoy, all the things that bring you joy, and all of the areas of your life that don't feel like they're going in the right direction. For me, often at this time of the year, we talk about our New Year's resolutions. And I don't know if anybody out there is the same as me, but if I do a New Year resolution, then it normally lasts until, if I'm lucky, about March. And if I'm not lucky, then it doesn't last anywhere near that long. And thank you for the comment. I really appreciate it. I'm glad it's resonating. And I'm not just some mad woman talking to myself on New Year's Day. So thank you for being with us. But for me, it's those moments of saying the resolutions didn't work because I didn't really mean them. I hadn't sat there with purpose and intention. I'd kind of just done the things that really were what I didn't want. So I set my goals in the negative. I don't want to be unfit. I don't want to be unhealthy. I don't want to be overweight. I don't want to be this. And so all of the goals were about things I didn't want to achieve. Instead of going, what is it I do want? So I do want to be healthy. I do want to be fit. I do want to have plenty of time with my little girl to enjoy. And once you start setting it in the positive of what you do want, you've got more drive to get there. You've got more passion to achieve those things because actually you're heading towards something. And I guess for me, one of my big lessons, I've shared this before on a different show, but one of my biggest career disasters was probably about 25 years ago. And I upped sticks and moved about 100 miles away from where I lived and where I worked and where all my friends were for this new job. And go big or go home. So I did. So I knew nobody, and I got there, and I hated every minute of it. It was the worst job I've ever had. Not because they weren't lovely people, not because it wouldn't have been a lovely job for somebody else, but it wasn't right for me. And I realized in that moment, lying to yourself, absolutely. I always broke my too, and so I'm definitely focusing on the intention. But when I did do this move, and I had, as I say, 100 miles away, I was there for 3 months, 2 of which were my notice period. And then I went to a previous organization, and I spent the next 8 months commuting back that 100 miles until I moved again. And it made me realize that actually the problem had been I wasn't running towards what I wanted. I was running away from what I had. I was so bored in the job that I had at the time and so fed up of that part of my life that instead of taking the time and intentionally building the life I wanted, I just looked for something that seemed a bit better, that I knew I could do, and therefore I could move towards it. And it was a pretty big lesson to learn. And I didn't enjoy the early starts to get back. So I guess over the years, I've learned a lot about this thinking really clearly about where we're heading. And, I always look at our brain as being a little bit like a car, a bit like a sat nav. The first thing when you're sitting in your car and you're setting up your sat nav, the first thing you have to tell it is where you're going, because without that, it can't possibly get you there. But the second thing you have to tell it is where you are, because without those two bits of information, it cannot navigate to get you to where you want to be. And the same is true of our subconscious brain. If we can't tell it really clearly where we want to go, it can't get us there. And so I invite people watching to think about it with intention. In 12 months' time, what do you want to be celebrating? What is it you want to say, this is what I've achieved? If it's just this one or two things, this is what is going to make 2026 my year, when I achieve these one or two. And be really clear, sit with them for a while and check how they really feel, because we can often be pulled into that sense of society that says, I used to love Only Fools and Horses, still do. This time next year, Rodney, we're going to be millionaires. We could put those ones out there. And if that's the one you want, that's absolutely fine. But for me, intentionality is about, what are those ones that would be amazing, but do I really think I can drive everything towards that? For me personally right now, possibly not. But I can be really intentional about what I do want, and those things that I know are going to bring me joy when I get there. And then the second thing I invite you to do is really reflect on where you are now and be really honest, even on those parts that you don't want to have to admit to, even on those bits that you hope nobody else. Do people find jobs they love? I hate my job, but it pays the bills. They do. And that is so true of so many. We can be in a job that we hate, but it pays the bills. And as a mum and a solopreneur, trust me, I understand the importance of paying the bills and having that security and knowing that you've got that peace of mind. I guess for me, it's those looking at what steps can you take? What is it about your job that you don't like? And what is it about your job you do? Because we can hate a job. I did with the one that I had. But I didn't hate all of it. I hated large elements of it. But when I really sat after I'd made the mistake and reflected on what were the things in it that I enjoyed, it helped me identify what the right next job for me was. And I've got a free ebook giveaway. If anybody is feeling stuck in their career, in how they set those, then please just drop your email in the comments or reach out to me at AuthenticAchievements.com, and I will happily share it with you, because sometimes it's just knowing the right questions to ask ourselves to enable us to really understand where it is we're heading and really understand where it is we are now. Because often we can think everything's wrong. Like we think, oh God, I hate this job and I'm really stuck. But when we dig underneath that and find the parts of it that we go, oh, actually, I quite like that bit and that bit. So they're the bits I need to find more of. And I don't like this bit and this bit. So for me, for example, things that bring me joy are people. So I know if I didn't have a job that had lots of people in it, I wouldn't be very happy, because I love talking to people. I love hearing their stories. I love understanding what's going on in their world. And so that's really important to me. But filing, not my bag, not very organized. I don't really like to be very structured or very or very organized and pushed into those elements. And so something that's got a lot of those elements to it is not going to be good for me either. So understanding some of those outliers allows you to pull it in and go, oh, okay, so I want less of that and more of this. And then recognize, that there are things that we don't enjoy, but we know we have to do. So I spent nearly 30 years in regulated financial services. So you have to be compliant, you have to follow the rules, you have to know where they are. So it might not be something that necessarily in everyday life would have been something that brought me joy, but I knew it needed to be done, and that was okay. That was something that I could achieve because I understood why it fit in with what I did want to do. And so I think sometimes it is just learning to reflect on the both sides of that helps us to really think about what it is we're spending our time doing. Because if life's taught us anything, it's that it's short. And I often will ask myself, in fact, I've got an hourglass on my desk, and every now and again I'll turn it over to be really intentional for that next hour and say, if this is the last hour I spent on earth, is this what I'd want to be spending it doing? Is this going to be something that I feel adds some value? And so I think that's why, for me, intention is more sustainable than resolution, because we're setting an intention about what we're going to do, where we're heading, what we're driving, versus what it is we are changing. So we're looking at it from that first start, really. And so I guess for me, as we've got that new year, we often will have that new year energy. We can feel hopeful and also heavy at the same time. We can feel a pressure to reinvent ourselves. And this is really an episode that's inviting you to pause and not to push, to ask yourself, what if this year isn't about becoming someone new, but about coming home to who you already are? To be able to look at where you want to be without worrying about what anybody else thinks about that. And that, in our current despair and compare society, is a courageous thing to do. And we look at the seemingly perfect lives of everybody on social media and the messy reality of our own life and find ourselves lacking. But the reality is there's mess in everybody's life. Into every life a little rain may fall. It's just not necessarily shown anywhere. And I think for me, one of my greatest breakthroughs was when I stopped sharing my goals and saying, actually, what is it that I want to be? Who is it I want to be? How is it I want to be? And kind of making that shift, because life does shift. It throws us in plot twists all over the place. But when you've got intention, it holds you steady through those plot twists. It allows you to find some ground to hold on to. As I often will say to my friends when things are going horrendously wrong, which often happens, that when I can't find peace in the messy storms of my mind that's telling me all the things I can't control, my intentions are the life raft I can cling to until I can find steadier ground that allows me to say, this is what I'm looking to do. This is where I'm looking to achieve. What can I see? What step can I take that moves me forward towards that allows me to make some progress, no matter how small. So for me, goals ask, what do I want to achieve? Whereas intention asks, how do I want to live whilst I'm doing it? So time is always against us. People don't know, they're always trying to beat the clock. It's so true. I mean, the things that we don't ever regret are the chances we took. The real regrets in life are the chances we didn't. The ones where we talked ourselves out of it and then we're left with the what if. I've taken plenty of steps, many of which went wrong, but I learned something in every one of them. And I don't regret any of them, no matter how badly they turned out, because they taught me something. They allowed me to grow as a person. But that takes some courage sometimes to look for those. Happy New Year too. It takes some self-compassion to look at the mistakes you've made and forgive yourself for them. But unless you do forgive yourself for them and take the lesson that sits within them, they keep repeating. And that's hard and it hurts. When you've knocked your head against the same wall a few times, it's time to stop hitting it and take a step back and go, okay, this isn't working. So what is it that can be different? And for me, one of the things that I've learned, particularly in the last couple of years, is I was really bad at trusting my gut instinct, at things that would tell me something didn't feel right, but I'd still go, no, I'm sure it's okay. And what I've found is, so I'm a life coach now. I wouldn't ever say I was a life coach, because to say I could coach somebody's whole life would feel a bit arrogant for me personally. I guess what I am is someone who's lived a lot of experiences, and what I actually do is coach leaders in how to be better leaders. But as a leader, I'm also a person who's lived through lots of different ups and downs. I've had numerous things, from life-threatening illnesses to divorces to miscarriages. Life throws us the odd plot twist. I think I've even had a hurricane at one point. And I guess it's just about what is it we learned? What is it that we have taken away from those situations that allow us to lead better? Because every single one of us is a leader, because we are all leading our own life. But we don't always know that. We don't always look at it from that angle that said, if I was genuinely leading my life, what would it look like? What would be the bits that I would put down? What would be the bits that I would want to do more of? Because achievement without alignment can feel empty. And I guess for me, when we get it aligned, it gives us growth, integrity, not just results, but we feel right. And success that costs your well-being, it's just too expensive. And for a lot of my clients, that's where they are. They've given up their well-being at the expense of external success. Oh, great question. So if I had one piece of advice to the next generation, how would I tell them to live? I would invite them to be still with themselves and ask questions. Ask themselves, what is it I really want? And why is it I really want that? What's it going to do for me? So there's a very old theory I got taught when I first started leading, and it's called the 5 why theory. And it talks about the fact that the first answer we give is the one we think is the most likely to be expected or accepted. And so what that theory does is invites you to question the answer a few more times, go down a few more levels. So whatever your first answer is, okay, it's interesting. What makes that important to me? Or what do I think that's going to do for me when I achieve it? And then when we keep going down, we actually get to the crux of what it is we really, really want. So I would invite anybody, the next generation, I say to my little girl all the time, she's 9, she's like, just take a moment and be still. Think about all the things that you love and enjoy, and then think about all the things you don't love and enjoy, and then work through what's right for you. I remember doing a talk a few years ago for a group of teenagers from an underprivileged area. And it was about setting their intention for what they wanted to do around their career. And I remember going in and to start off with, it was quite so I've spoken in front of thousands of leaders, standing in front of a group of young teenagers getting ready for the world, but already feeling like the world is against them, felt quite daunting. And I remember starting, and it was like, what is it people want to be? And everyone, when they were putting it down, were looking at the people either side of them. I said, just sit with yourself and think about what it is you'd really like to do. And the reality is, everyone was like checking with everybody else first before they put it down. And the harsh reality is, the likelihood of the people either side of them still being in their lives in another 15 years is highly unlikely. Now, I say that knowing that my best friend has been my best friend since I was 4. So I'm not saying it never happens, but it's less likely. I have 1 or 2 friends from school that I still keep in regular touch with. So if I'd have built my life and my success around what I thought was acceptable to them, I would have missed a trick, because we've not ended up in the same areas. We've not ended up in the same space. And so what I would invite the next generation to do is go inward. Ask yourself, what if you never had to tell anybody, if you knew that if you wrote it down, nobody else would ever see it, what do you really want? What honestly makes you happy? And it doesn't matter if that's different to anybody else's, but it matters that you know it. Because if not, you will spend a lot of years feeling a sense of lack, no matter what it is you achieve. And one of the reasons for the hourglass is I was actually reading Stephen Bartlett's book, Sexy Happy Millionaire. And he talks in that about when his first drive was to become the millionaire. And he'd got there and he achieved it, but he wasn't happy at that point. Yes, he didn't want for anything, but he wasn't happy, he wasn't fulfilled. And he realized that was because he hadn't been intentional about what he wanted to achieve. And that's why he has hourglasses all around his house and his office to remind him the importance and the power of intention. And I coach C-level executives and boards around the world, and I see the same thing all the time. The outward success, the strappings of success, and yet the inward turmoil that they don't feel fulfilled, that their sense of self has got lost somewhere along the way. And how do you journey back to that? So I guess for me, that would be my invitation to anybody watching, whatever stage of your career you're at, is take a moment of pause and ask yourself the questions. For any one of you that's a leader, we know the questions we're going to ask our people, but how often do we really ask them of ourselves? And the other thing that a piece of advice I would like to give my younger self is to lean into curiosity. I was brought up on the term that curiosity killed the cat. So best not be curious, that's childish. And yet the actual saying is curiosity killed the cat and satisfaction brought it back. So curiosity kills the version of ourselves that we are, but the satisfaction we get from what we learn by being curious helps us grow into the next version of ourselves. And so for me, it's the number one skill that I think if we play around with that more, I've seen it even in young children. I remember a few years ago, my little girl was using her imagination to come up with something and what could be next, what might happen. And her little friend, who was a couple of years older, went, "Oh, you don't want to use your imagination. That's childish. You should have stopped that." And I was mortified because I was like, "Oh my goodness, you're not even 8 yet, and you've already think the imagination and curiosity are over and done with." But that little friend wants to be a golfer, and I said to him, "You do know that every single golf professional, every single person who is successful at anything, wins it in here before they win it out here. They imagine it." They are curious with themselves about what steps could they take, what things could they learn, who could they invite in that's going to help them to get better, to round off those edges. Because we often sit and we wait for this next big thing that's going to happen. And yet most success comes from the iteration, from the boring review, reevaluate and reflect, and the consistency of doing that, of looking at those elements and saying, instead of it being what big thing's going to come in and save, what small thing can I do that makes today better than yesterday? And if we do that every single day, our lives become transformed. But the challenge is we're often waiting for the perfect time or the perfect set of circumstances or sight of the whole staircase before we take the next step. And so this year, I would like to invite everybody watching to think about living a year of intention. What is your intention? What are you going to make 2026 stand for? What are you going to be celebrating with us this time next year? And most importantly, how is it going to feel? Because the more we can picture that, the more we can understand, the questions I ask myself, it's so true. Fear is the mind killer. And fear, as we've talked about before, fear is imagined. It hasn't happened yet. The thing that we are fearful of, we've had to imagine, we've had to think about it in our brain. The thing we're hopeful for also hasn't happened yet. We have to imagine it in our brain. The same brain. the same brain that imagines the thing we're fearful of imagines the thing we're hopeful for. So neither one is more credible or more likely. And yet we choose to believe that the thing we're fearful of is more credible and more likely. Why? It was imagined in the same brain. But just like we said earlier, with the car being a sat nav, if we are focusing on what we're fearful of, that's where we're driving the car. That's where we're putting the sat nav. And it's going to take us to the thing that we're fearful of. So we have to catch ourselves in that moment and say, actually, what is it I do want? Because I don't want to live in fear. I don't want things to go wrong. So instead of thinking about that, I'm going to invite myself to think about what I do want, where I do want to head, what I do want to set as my intention. And for me and for many of the people that I work with, and for all of the people I work with, it's been a game changer of taking those moments of pause, of saying, actually, when things get tough, instead of doing more, it's a time that your body's saying, stop, just think for a moment. You're right, a lot of people do think that way, and people do wait around for something that's going to be the calling, that's going to be the difference. But sadly, very often that doesn't come, because we have to take positive action for us to get where it is we want to go. You know, I was brought up on you just put your head down and you do a good job, and the rest will fall. And it's not true, because unless you can set that, you know, I did work hard. I did put my head down. You know, I was very lucky. I had a really good career, but I had a really good career because I set an intention about what I wanted to achieve. And I saw many people who were just as good as I was, who didn't get there because they hadn't set the intention. They weren't taking the uncomfortable action. They weren't asking in their one-to-ones, what is it I need to do differently to be able to succeed? When you go for a job interview, to ring back and say, could you give me some really clear feedback on what I needed to do differently for me to succeed? Yeah, I remember once being told I didn't have the gravitas or the vocabulary to meet my potential. Wasn't the nicest feedback I've ever heard, but it allowed me to do something about it. I could be upset and just do nothing and go, well, that's the vocabulary I've got. That's where life brought me. Or I could read some books and watch some courses and develop a better vocabulary. I could work on my gravitas and how I showed up in the world, how I held myself. And once I did both of those, things changed. So I guess for me, one of the things that I did early on was always want to know what I could do differently, what I could do better. Now, any overplayed strength becomes a weakness. I was so busy looking for the things I was bad at, that I also had some pretty harsh feedback from one leader who said to me that he'd never met anybody who beat themselves up as harshly and as often as I did. And if it weren't for the fact it was so tragic, it would be a key skill. Yeah, it was tough to hear. And sent me down a new direction of saying, okay, so why is it I can't find any kindness for myself? I can be kind to other people, I can be kind externally, but I can't be kind to me. And that was probably the toughest journey I've been on in my 52 years, was journeying back to myself. And that's why I invite anybody that's feeling stuck, start that journey now, because the sooner you start it, the sooner you'll get there, and things just become so much easier once we realize that we're exactly where we're supposed to be right now, to be exactly where we're supposed to be in the future. We can actually start to live it. Because as we look at these things, strength and wisdom is a potent combination. It is. It's like having that courage to say, if I don't like where I am, I'm going to have to take action, even if that action is uncomfortable. I'm going to have to do something because I don't want to stay here any longer. I don't want to feel this any longer. And so it's up to me to make that choice. But you don't have to do it on your own. You know, you can see somebody else who's already doing what it is that you would like and reach out to them to find out what advice would they give you? What lesson did they learn on their journey? Because nobody got up and it was all just there for them. Everybody's had to go through a journey to get to where they are, even if it's one you can't see. And most people are really happy to help, to share a piece of advice that might give you a different perspective, or listen to podcasts, or read books, anything that just allows you to get some different perspectives on where you are currently and where you want to go. And for me, the practice that I put in last year that's really helped is every single day I sit for 10 minutes and think about my overall intention, and then what could I do today that's going to help me move that forward, that's going to help me do something different, that's going to help me to feel like today was a success. And every single night, my little girl and I, we celebrate the things that we're grateful for. It might be the people that we met that day. It might be an experience that we had. It might be we had a lovely meal. It can be anything. But when we start celebrating the little wins, we have more things to celebrate. And I was really bad at that. I would wait until there was something really big to celebrate, or save that bottle for something really special. And 10 years later, you've still got it. But each day is a gift. Our future isn't promised, and our past no longer needs us. That's why today is called the present, because it's the gift we have that we should enjoy. And so I guess for me, as I round into the end of the show, and also into the start of 2026, I invite everybody watching to take that time to pause, to reflect, to think about what it is that you're really wanting to achieve, what you really want to be celebrating next year in all aspects of your life, whether that's in your career, whether that's in your relationships, whether that's in your friendships, whether that's in your hobbies. Thank you. It's knowing what all of those are. And I never used to do it for all elements. And that for me personally was a mistake, because when I had done it, I was very intentional on what I wanted for my career. But I wasn't perhaps as intentional, certainly not for my hobbies. I mean, they went out of the window, but actually they were the things that bring me back a little bit of re-energizing. And we need to do that. So I invite you to kind of sit down and go, okay, so I'm going to celebrate this, where I did something that I enjoyed. It could be a hobby, it could be a starting something new, but it's something that's just for you. And then this is going to be something that I celebrate for my family, like whatever that looks like, or for my friends, or for my career and my work. And how am I going to feel when I've got all of these? Because we talk about work-life balance, but it never is in balance. But if it's constantly out of balance in all areas, that's when it feels heavy. When we set our intention in each of them, we can go, okay, so today's a little bit more heavily self-compassion than it is the others, but that's okay, because tomorrow is more heavily work than anything else. And so my hope for everybody listening and watching is, one, that there might have been something in here that was helpful, or has made you have pause for thought and reflection. And I wish every single one of you that this year brings you peace, joy, happiness, and fulfillment. And thank you so much for sharing this episode with me. And until next time, take care.
Listen, babe, now, listen, babe, now. Listen, babe, now, listen, babe, now. Listen, babe, now, listen, babe, now.
In a noisy world, true connection begins with listening. Elevated listening transforms every conversation in just 5 simple steps. Pause and breathe. Set your intention. Listen with curiosity, reflect back, agree on one next step. Join the Listening Mentor on Let's Finally Talk with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the Listening Mentor, where we help you find inner peace, one conversation at a time. Streaming every day, Let's Finally Talk TV show with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, only here on USA, Global TV and Radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channels to watch and engage with all our content.
Which of these 5 statements sounds mostly like you? 1. I often wake up in the middle of the night worrying about my future. 2. I'm angry or resentful towards a specific person. 3. I have anxious, obsessive, compulsive thoughts throughout the day. 4. I have an addiction like smoking, drinking, shopping, sugar, or social media. And 5. I feel that I'm wasting away my life. Hello, I'm Dr. Alkistis Agio, and for over 25 years, I've been coaching and training people from all over the world to transform their fears, insecurities, anxiety, and anger into mental and emotional freedom. I'm confident that my simple 3-step method based on Greek philosophy can help you to transform into the joyful, confident, free human being that you deserve to be. I want to invite you to join my weekly online coaching group to finally get the results that you want. Look, you've tried it alone so far and you've had some okay results, but let's face it, you're still feeling stuck right now, spinning your wheels. Einstein said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Now, unless you realize this as a fact, that you are a prisoner of your own mind, you can't move forward. I'm here to support you, as well as the whole community that we are co-creating. Stop feeling stuck. Stop feeling depressed. You don't have to do it alone, and alone isn't working anyway. Sign up today and I'll meet you on the inside of our amazing weekly group call. I guarantee that you'll make progress from the very first session.
Nestled in the heart of the Blue Ridge Mountains, the Horseshoe Farm has always been more than a destination. It's a living, breathing reflection of community, connection, and transformation. Once a humble family farmstead, it has evolved over the years to become a sanctuary for travelers, seekers, families, and friends alike. Originally reimagined by the Turchin family as an Airbnb property, the farm began its journey into hospitality with simple roots, welcoming guests to experience the beauty and peace of the sacred land. As word spread and the vision deepened, the property organically blossomed into a boutique resort, rooted in the values of slow living, intentional experiences, and the magic of gathering. Today, the Horseshoe Farm is a 90-acre experiential retreat that merges hospitality, wellness, and culinary excellence. It is home to the Stable Spa, the Silo Cookhouse, distinctive lodging options, and a curated calendar of events that nourish mind, body, and spirit. Our guest experience is designed to be both grounding and expansive, where the comforts of luxury meet with the simplicity of nature. At its core, the Horseshoe Farm is about transformation of land, of self, and of community. We are proud of where we've come from. We are confident in who we are today and excited for the road ahead. Hello, I'm Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, also known as the Listening Mentor and President and Founder of USA Global TV and Radio. I had the opportunity, the pleasure of attending a retreat at the Horseshoe Farm just recently. I was so impressed with all of the opportunities that were presented to me in this glorious setting, as well as the highest level of customer service, that I've decided to put together a retreat at the Horseshoe Farm in Hendersonville, North Carolina, United States of America, June 3rd through the 6th, 2026. You can expect to have a beautiful time of relaxation combined with learning, community, collaboration. Do consider joining me in this wonderful opportunity to reconnect with yourself, with others, and with nature. For more information, email me at drjacqueline@usaglobaltv.com.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.